Rebecca!
I'm here.
Are you alright? Hey, we managed to stop the train.
Yes, we managed.
We have to find a way out.
Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to Resident Evil 0, where we're finally out of the train and its various ruins, and if you left any items aboard the train, you know, whether you had to drop them, or... Actually, no, you couldn't put them in the item box anyway. But yeah, if you had to drop any items on the train, anything important really, don't worry, they'll pretty much all be found in this little area right here, so... Yeah, don't worry about losing anything plot essential. Like the hookshot. Because, God willing, you're gonna need that fucking thing. Which is why, unlike the previous time, I'm picking it up right this very now, and taking it to the mansion. Because that is our next destination, and, yeah, some of these areas may look a little bit familiar to you, because on top of, you know, going over familiar Resident Evil 1 territory, we're also going to be coming across a few familiar Resident Evil 2 areas, one of which is immediately as soon as we enter the next area, but another of which comes later. But yeah, if you're hurting a bit for healing items, if you didn't take any with you on the train, they'll be right here, so, yeah, you have a little stockade that you can come back to if you feel the need. Although, then again, that does also go into the game's whole thing of commuting back and forth, rather than putting them in the item box. You want a better ping, you do the thing, blah. Although, I suppose, if nothing else, I mean, it does kind of, you know, ease a slight criticism I did have about Code Veronica with the whole fire extinguisher thing. Which you needed in order to gain access to the AK-47, because again, if you left that behind on Rockford Island, both as Chris or Claire, yeah, you're not getting that AK-47 later in the game, and considering how difficult Code Veronica can be as a game, you're going to be hurting for ammo pretty quickly. Also, dear God, Rebecca, I probably chose the wrong outfit for her to be running around in, because, sports shorts and sewer water, it ain't mixed very well. But that's besides the point, so, let's watch the cutscene.
The Umbrella Research Center? First General Manager, Dr. James Marcus.
Who on earth are those people?
She's just a rookie, a member of STARS.
What about the male?
I'm unfamiliar with him.
Attention! This is Dr. Marcus. Please be silent as we reflect upon our company motto. Obedience breeds discipline. Discipline breeds unity. Unity breeds power. Power is life.
Who are you?
It was I who scattered the T-virus in the mansion. Needless to say, I contaminated the train, too.
What?
Revenge. On Umbrella.
Dr. Marcus?
10 years ago, Dr. Marcus was murdered by Umbrella. You helped them, didn't you?
Well now, who's the mysterious man who seems to be avenging Dr. Marcus? Could he be his son? The son of the evil doctor. Leech Man. Well, I guess that's as good a name as I need to call him for the time being, but yes, it seems that, Dr. William Birkin and Dr. Albert Wesker, captain of the STARS team. Yeah, seems they had something to do with the death of old Mr. Marcus Esquire. But who would want him dead? Well, it seems Umbrella was, pretty clear to get people out of the way. Especially that, Oswald Spencer kind of guy. I doubt Alexander or Alfred Ashford really gave a rat's butt. But yeah, we'll find out more of the machinations as to the how and the why much later on. In the meantime, as is typical Resident Evil tradition, we have a spelunk around the mansion and do a bit of exploring. And that's pretty much the precipice of what this part is going to be, and where I'm basically going to be talking about more development history from Resident Evil. Just as soon as I go over, you know, the basics of what you're going to be doing for those of you who haven't seen my previous Resident Evil commentaries, because, again, it apes a lot of the structure of Resident Evil 1, but at the same time, it also has a lot of the progression of Resident Evil 3, I find, in that, you know how you start off on the train, then go to the mansion? Similarly, you're also going to be going from the mansion to another area, then to another area, and, you know, eventually wind up in the final area of the game, you know, which is your typical Umbrella whack-a-madoodle, so on and so forth. But again, when it comes to classic Resident Evil, the last time we would see it in Resident Evil 0, basically, when you're in a mansion area like this, you have to mark out your locations, find a safe room to put all your items in, scavenge for supplies, make sure that you build up a decent stockade, and again, slowly figure out your way to get past locked doors, find keys, solve puzzles, and, you know, make your way across a zombie-filled mansion, where there will be dancing the zombie. But yeah, by the time you do get to know, oh no, the zombies attacks, and yeah, it's around here where you're going to be encountering a lot more leech zombies, which, as I mentioned previously, are pretty much the kind of zombies that are just gonna show up with a bunch of leeches at them. Best bet to take them down is either using Molotov cocktails, the grenade launcher if you find it, particularly with flame rounds, because that'll take care of all the leeches. You can take it out with a handgun, but the problem with doing that is that, again, the leeches, after they take a certain amount of damage, they'll pretty much bloat and expand, and then, well, self-destruct, causing a bunch of leeches to punch about the place, and basically deal little bits of pip damage to you, which is not something you're gonna want. But yeah, apart from that, you do also have regular zombies bopping about the place, so it's all very head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and it's your typical Resident Evil experience, so not really too much more to explain. In the meantime, though, what is our current objective of the now, apart from establishing a base of operations, is also trying to access the upper parts of the mansion and unlock the doors. Behind those doors are key items that we need to solve puzzles, and of course uncover the terrible origins behind the Umbrella facility. And also get a little look-see around James Marcus's humble abode. Or at least so it would seem, because similar to the Oswald Spencer mansion in the Arklay Mountains, which is in close proximity to James Marcus's facility, for quite obvious reasons, yeah, the mansions themselves are just a front. This is, well, again, you're going to be seeing a little bit more of it a bit later once we get into the upper areas, but yeah, this is Umbrella's training facility. I guess you could call it similar to what Rockford Island was with, you know, Code Veronica, but yeah, this was basically a place to not only train Umbrella soldiers, but was also meant to be, well, James Marcus's little personal hideaway for his own little T-virus experiments, as, well, a game will later go on to show he was pretty much the main scientist behind discovering the progenitor virus back in Africa, and in turn that it was his research that eventually led to the T-virus being developed as it was, and further experimentation going on inside these walls. And if you already couldn't tell right from the moment the game began as to what he was experimenting with, well, seek help. In fact, why not help James Marcus in his experiments? Go down to his creepy basement and eat his leeches. And all of a sudden, I'm desperately wishing for that Nightmare on Elm Street tank control survival horror game. That does honestly make me surprised that they never made one. I mean, Silent Hill was the thing at this point, and given like the whole puzzle-solving aspects and, you know, psychological trip-out stuff, it feels like it would have been prime opportunity to have like a Nightmare on Elm Street game based on this sort of thing, you know? But anyway, I'm just sort of dilly-dallying and beating around the bush. So, development history time for Resident Evil 0. I guess it's apropos to start off with the Nintendo 64, but part of the reason why it was initially chosen for the N64 back in 2000 was mainly due to its short cartridge load times, which made it perfect for the game's main selling point, which was the character switching mechanic between Billy and Rebecca. And part of the reason why the game never really shipped for the N64 is that the game was so large that it would have pushed the game to 2 cartridges, which, up until this point, Resident Evil 2 didn't really need to do that. At least I don't think. Did Resident Evil 2 come on 2 cartridges? Because, I mean, it did come on 2 discs for the PlayStation and Dreamcast. I'm not too sure about the N64, though. I'm gonna say no, but, again, I could be wrong about that. But again, I suppose the fact that it would have pushed Resident Evil 0 to 2 cartridges, and again, given the cost of manufacturing and, you know, shipping games like that, which, I mean, even in this day and age, shipping games with 2 discs is still something that publishers are very antsy about, because, I don't know, I guess, costs of manufacturing CDs are still, well, are or were quite high at that point. Well, and even then, cartridges are made out of, you know, motherboards with their own circuitry, so that probably was a little bit more expensive for the computer parts to make it, so, yeah. But anyway, apart from the size and everything being, you know, one of the issues, the fact that the GameCube was literally right around the corner with the 2002 Resident Evil remake being on it, Zero was transferred over with a few differences, aside from revising a few scenes, like how Edward's hand would have been the one that Joseph found in Resident Evil 1, which, again, in this game, it's not Edward's hand, so what hand did, Joseph find? I guess maybe it might have been implied to be like one of the MP soldiers guarding Billy, or maybe the helicopter pilot from Bravo Team? Yeah, but I can't really say for certain. But again, in addition to adding that was also stuff like, you know, adding in a lot of the mythos and lore that had been added to Resident Evil up to that point, you know, incorporating a lot of the Code Veronica stuff, you know, like the whole Ashford family forming the Umbrella Corporation, as well as everything else that had happened between, you know, Resident Evil 2 and 3. Which, again, is, you know, I guess I'm trying to think about it actually, because I mean I was doing a bit more research to see what changed between the N64 version and the GameCube/HD releases, and as far as I can tell, not much content was really changed. I mean, in terms of the N64 prototype itself, which I might possibly show off for a bonus video. Yeah, like, I mean, apparently 20% of it was done, so I'm guessing that the only area on the N64 prototype that we can actually see was probably the train area. But I mean, apart from that, I don't know, really. I'm guessing that either what was already there was already intended for the game as was and was more or less preserved. Because, I mean, they did initially have different voice acting for the N64 version as well, so I guess obviously they changed actors and, you know, updated character models where necessary, so... it's weird, really. So I guess everything that was intended to be in the game was there, and anything that was added likely would have been added to the N64 version anyway, had it been completed. But yeah, Resident Evil 0 seems to be one of the few Resident Evil games where there wasn't really a lot of behind-the-scenes trouble. I mean, you know, there was no revision to the game, as we saw in Resident Evil 1, there was no multiple different versions like Resident Evil 4, or, you know, handing it off to Sega to help finish up with Capcom's unexperienced development staff in Code Veronica or whatever. And again, no power struggles between Shinji Mikami or, you know, Hideki Kamiya in Resident Evil 2, so... yeah, unless I'm missing something, Resident Evil 0 might just be the smoothest development cycle Resident Evil had ever had. Just kind of a shame, really, that it wound up being one of the more... well, simultaneously one of the more underappreciated games in the series, but also... one that's, you're, you know, kinda deserving of it. And I don't know why I'm doing that voice. It's just my new thing, really. Like how in the Sonic Adventure playthrough I said bada bing we do the thing and it became a catchphrase, and... no, that's pretty much the turn my life has taken at this stage. And, by the way, yes, that was indeed the school training facility where they teach Umbrella people how to be appropriate disciples of obedience, doing as you're told, fuck you, and discipline. Yeah, I think it's quite clear that, while Oswald Spencer had his pocketbook very clearly lined up, as well as a few of his own pet projects going on in the Arklay Mountains, yeah, he really didn't seem to give much of a rat's ass about what Edward or James Marcus were doing, because, I mean, again, and I think Resident Evil 5 kind of explains this a little bit more with the Lost in Nightmares DLC. These three gentlemen, being the founders of Umbrella, they were school chums together, so again, they did have their very morbid fantasies, so to speak, but I don't know, Zero doesn't really delve into that aspect, so again, it kind of loses a little bit more of the... I guess maybe the whole sort of thread that the plot ties into, because, like, I mean, again, you do have references here and there to the other parts of Umbrella, but you don't really get too much about how the betrayal really stung Dr. Marcus and his little associate with the opera singing. And I don't know, I feel like something a little bit more like that probably would have helped make the plot feel a little bit more, spicy. But, I don't know, I'm guessing that they were likely saving this for a potential Resident Evil 4 by the time they actually figured out what it was, or I guess Resident Evil 5, where they actually did work some of that stuff out for the Lost in Nightmares DLC, / Resident Evil 5 itself, with its complete global saturation. Oh, we can't access the door because we need Billy. But yeah, Billy's lighter does not have any lighter fluid, so we're kinda out of luck. And I guess a bit of fair warning actually, even though I do primarily tend to use Rebecca for a lot of my Resident Evil 0 playthroughs, I am gonna at least make a token effort to give Billy at least some of his fair share of the screen time, because as a character I do, and again I probably haven't really discussed this all that much since we've been talking about Rebecca and that sexy, luscious basketball outfit. Yeah, and in terms of Billy Cohen as a character, it starts off a little bit sort of like generic, yeah, I'm a prisoner, yeah, I'm cool. But again, I will say that I do legitimately like his character. There were some interesting things that the game was initially planning on doing with him that I'll be discussing at a later date, but in terms of how he's handled in Zero, he's decent. Not my favourite Resident Evil character, but I could certainly do worse, so he does get a pass from me, and given what happens at the end of the game, it's, again, yet another example of Resident Evil characters making an appearance in one game, and then never showing up ever again, despite the fact that they have plenty of room to appear again. Although, then again, I suppose given Billy's deal that he's being hunted by the US military and, you know, is pretty much being put on trial for war crimes, yeah, guess that guy probably wouldn't be showing up in any future games unless he wants to, face his execution like a man. And this was back and forth commuting that I probably should have cut down, but, no, actually, because we've got some important things to do. Namely, exploring some different rooms with Billy and, you know, depositing one of our puzzle pieces on the scales of justice. Which in this case requires us to grab multiple puzzle pieces and forge them together, because again, as you're going to be seeing shortly, or as you saw before when we picked it up in the initial room. Yes, we have half a Black Angel statue, but it's only half. We need the full set. For only the balance of the light and the dark can set us free. Someday I will match my perfect tenor with James Marcus and his loving son, Leechman. Oh. Okay, that was a very nice camera angle of Billy's crotch, but yeah, now we're gonna do some exploring as Billy. Oh, Billy. But again, this is also where some of the problems start to make sense, because you also gotta get in close to share items with different characters, and you have no item box, and you can only have a limited amount of space to put it. Even though, as you can see here, there seems to be a bunch of space where you can put literally all of your inventory and then some. But no, eventually, by the time you fill up an arbitrary amount of space / item drops in the area, it'll pretty much just say, "Nah mate, you're not allowed to drop any more items. Nah mate, you gotta drop it somewhere else." And again, I understand, yes, playing on easy mode, overflow of items, wouldn't be a problem on normal mode, but even in that case, again, as I mentioned previously, it doesn't have that sort of get-up-and-go pace of, you know, the actionized Resident Evil games, where you're constantly dropping and picking up ammunition as you need it and consume it, so again, you're basically just doing a lot of work for very little gain, and what you do gain, you're pretty much either forced to use up and waste it, or, you know, you just either conserve it and tank the hits, and it's an equilibrium that I feel a lot of other Resident Evil games tended to hit a little bit better than Zero, so generally speaking, I'm very nonplussed about this situation. But alas, those are all the examinations and item things, and yeah, for the sake of the playthrough, I do like to examine all the items, so that again, for those of you curious about what a thing is, I'll let you pause the video, read it, and I don't know, that's just something I do. It's kind of something I actually like to do with the Devil May Cry games, well, Devil May Cry 1 specifically, because again, Dante can actually examine items and get nifty little bits of mythology about their Malay Island and whatever. What is this? Reading. I can't really read it because the writing's kind of small right now, but you can. Unless you're illiterate, in which case, we're kind of up Ship Creek, ain't we? Hang on, there's people outside and they're making me nervous. I hate people being outside. They scare me. Just like those crows outside my window. They make me want to run away. It's a dark and gloomy night, quoth Raven. Then yeah, you see that sparkly thing off in the distance, telling you exactly where to go and what to do, so pick it up and just be prepared for obvious things. And this is precisely what we need to get the lift-a-majig to go up. Actually, hang on. Maybe it was just my video editor lagging, but I swear to God I just saw those windows jut open without much of a visual effect to hide it. I might have to go back and rewatch that part, actually, as soon as I'm done here, but, if that's the case, that might either be, like, a failure state on the game developer's part, or it might be just, the HD collection. Or it could be in the original game, too. I don't really know. Either way, tut-tut Capcom. Oh, there's people outside and I'm scared. Yes, indeed, I have agoraphobia. Sue me. Then how do I go outside in the morning? Heck, we should anyway, have a save of the game. Just collect items, pad out for time. With filler commentary, that does the job just nicely. Weaving Maven. Come on, stop panning out for time. Of course. More item management. The game. But yeah, I guess you could probably kind of tell that I've pretty much done this sort of thing half a dozen times before in previous commentaries that talking about it has just become a little bit banal, to be honest. Again, don't take that as an indictment against the game, mind you, it's just more so that I've been doing Resident Evil commentaries and commentaries in general right around the time I started, actually. That was nearly 10 years ago. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's a very terrifying thought. I'm getting older. Well, I didn't want to end this on a very existential note, so, yeah, in the meantime, we pretty much have all that we need here. We've got the crank. Now, all that remains is to get Rebecca ready here, so we're gonna have a case of teleporting, by which I mean switching to Rebecca and having her pretty much just transmit over here through means of the Fox-Die death effect from Metal Gear Solid. Well, don't believe me? Just take a look at it. It's, Fox-Die. Teleporting. There we go. So, we'll pretty much just transfer our items, have Rebecca rise up to the second floor, and then we can begin. Oh, and I swear to God, like, the crank raising sound effect that Billy uses, well, that sounds off when Billy raises the crank is, I swear to God, the sound effect I swear to God I heard in Jak and Daxter when you're realigning the blue eco beams. I don't know, maybe Capcom stole Naughty Dog's sound library, or maybe it's a stock sound and I'm just talking out me bum. Yes, me bum. We finally got that slide, even though we could have gotten it before if we had the fucking item box. Yeah, but anyway, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Conniptions for the final letter came here for the one derivative you manage is the one I abhor. I need a minute to eliminate forever what the everyday bullshit that I did.